You're watching Canadian Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, greetings of peace. I'm Katherine Bullock from Toronto, Ontario. Today we're talking to Sarah Mushtaq, board member of the Canadian Muslim Public Affairs Council. She's going to talk to us about a new organization called the Canadian Muslim Public Affairs Council. First, some news headlines. First Nations get clean water after 24-year wait. In Shoal Lake 40, a First Nations community on the Manitoba-Ontario border, First Nations people can now drink water from their taps after 24 years. $33 million was spent to get a water treatment facility fully operational earlier this week. Previously, the only way to travel back and forth from the community was by crossing the lake on summer barges or the winter road. And this made it very expensive to get construction material to build a water treatment plant. Mark Miller, Canada's Indigenous Services Minister, said, "This is not a victory of the federal government. This is a victory of the community." According to federal data, 51 long-term drinking water advisories are still in effect in 32 Indigenous communities. Since November 2015, a total of 109 advisories have been lifted. Earlier this month, the federal government and First Nations communities agreed on an $8 billion settlement in two class action lawsuits. The lawsuits were about access to safe drinking water. This is the worst Canadian election in terms of violence and vandalism, Canadian Anti-Hate Network says. Canadian Anti-Hate Network Executive Director Evan Balgord said that this has been the worst campaign he's seen in recent history in terms of far-right activity. Candidates from all parties are having their signs destroyed, being verbally assaulted, or worse. A Conservative candidate in Calgary's Nose Hill, Michelle Rempel-Garner, has been harassed by men with cameras demanding she respond to conspiracy theories. She also received a death threat. Garner said, "It's unfortunately an all too frequent occurrence for me and many of my colleagues, particularly women of all political stripes. And this increase in violent language, threats, and abuse certainly isn't confined to politics." Hura Mukbil, an NDP candidate for Ottawa South, agreed, "Her signs are constantly being torn down. It's particularly difficult for women generally, and then for racialized women like myself, that much more," she told CBC Ottawa. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken is calling France a vital partner in Asia. This was after a US-UK deal with Australia led to the failure of a major French submarine contract. Australia scrapped the $36 billion deal with France. This was as a result of an alliance announced this week between the US, Britain, and Australia to strengthen naval capabilities in the Indo-Pacific. Due to the pact, Australia will get a new American-made nuclear submarine fleet.
We welcome European countries playing an important role in the Indo-Pacific. We look forward to continued close cooperation with NATO, with the European Union, and others in this endeavor. France, in particular, is a vital partner on this and so many other issues, stretching back generations, and we want to find every opportunity to deepen our transatlantic cooperation in the Indo-Pacific and around the world.
Blinken's comments came after extraordinary criticism from French Defense Minister Florence Parly. Parly accused President Joe Biden of acting like his predecessor, saying they were stabbed in the back. The French embassy in Washington cancelled a Friday gala in protest. It was to commemorate the 240th anniversary of the Battle of the Capes. Facebook undermines privacy protections for its 2 billion WhatsApp users. Despite WhatsApp's assurances to users that their measures are private, the company has an extensive monitoring operation and regularly shares personal information. WhatsApp has more than 1,000 contract workers in Austin, Texas, Dublin, and Singapore. These hourly workers use special Facebook software to sift through millions of private messages, images, and videos. When Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg unveiled a new privacy-focused vision for Facebook in March of 2019, he cited the company's global messaging service WhatsApp as a model. Zuckerberg wrote, "The future of communication increasingly will shift to private encrypted services that keep messages and content more secure." That's it for the news. And now to our interview with Sarah Mushtaq from the Canadian Muslim Public Affairs Council. We turn now to an interview with Sarah Mushtaq, who is a board member of a newly founded organization called Canadian Muslim Public Affairs Council. I'm going to call it CMPAC. Later on, we can check if that's the right way to say it shortly. Sarah is a media contributor, formerly with CBC Windsor and also to the Windsor Star. So thank you for joining us. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So is it CMPAC? Is that how we're abbreviating it? CMPAC?
Yeah,
Okay.
CMPAC is perfect.
Canadian Muslim Public Affairs Council. You've recently released an election guide for the Canadian federal election and also a party platform comparison. Now, before I ask you about those details, let's just do a little bit of 101 for the viewers who might not understand exactly what is a public affairs council.
Yeah, of course. CMPAC, so as you mentioned, the Canadian Muslim Public Affairs Council is a new organization that's going to serve as a lobby organization to strengthen and advance the interests of the growing Muslim Canadian community. We've been very fortunate, alhamdulillah, to have a diverse group of community leaders from across the country who have come together to form this organization and, inshallah, move forward the interests of the community.
What gap did you see when you were having those initial conversations about why there was a need for such a thing?
Yeah, so we found that, since 9/11, let's cut straight to the point here. In the last 20 years, there's been an inundation of rising hate crime incidents, dog whistling in politics. There's systemic Islamophobia within government institutions, as well as, policies and laws, quite frankly, like Bill 21, that have infringed on Muslim rights across the country. So we felt that this group was a needed extra voice to support the work that many other organizations and community advocacy groups are already doing to sustain long-term advocacy at all levels of government. So federal, provincial, and municipal, to help reform systems, policies, and laws that may negatively or disproportionately affect the Muslim community.
So tell us then about the elections guide that you've put out recently. What's in it?
Of course. So CMPAC was able to develop a party platform comparison on key issues that may directly impact Canadian Muslims. So there's information on in that party platform on all of the parties, its strengths and weaknesses of their platforms, and what we believe the Canadian Muslim community may view as most important. And then we hope that this is a platform that this platform comparison can help inform community members to help them make an informed decision when they vote, whether they've already voted or if they plan to vote on election day on the 20th. We've been lucky, fortunate so far that we've had over 1,000 visits to this page and have had some feedback that, community members have been able to use the party platform comparison to help make a decision when they've gone to the polls.
So other organizations are putting out something called a report card where they give as if they're a teacher, an A, a B, C, D, or whatever. But yours is just called a party platform comparison. Could you tell us a little bit about did you make a conscious decision to do it that way?
Yeah, we did. So the idea here is so that you can really kind of go through each platform on key issues that we've highlighted and see the good and the bad. So we want to show, almost like a toolkit in a way for community members to be able to read these platforms, go through them, and then understand what are key points that are relevant to the community. So we kind of have it almost like color coded, where things that we believe are good, quote unquote, are highlighted and are in black text, and then things that we believe may be problematic are in red text. So you can kind of compare things accordingly.
And I noticed the red text and the black text. And I noticed then that all of the parties, you said all the parties, but I only saw Liberals, Conservative, and New Democrat. There are red and black under each of the party columns. So does that mean that you're trying to take a non-partisan approach to the actual parties, but you're taking a partisan approach to the issues by labeling some as red?
No, it's still nonpartisan. I realize that there's not a lot of colors for us to choose from when it comes to the parties as well. But it's supposed to be red and black just from good and bad from that perspective, not necessarily related to the party colors.
No, I didn't mean that. I meant, so you're not giving a rating on each party, but you've said in black, this is a good issue from the party, and all of the parties have black, which means you think they're doing good. The platform is good in many,
right.
But sometimes all of the parties are getting statements in red, which means you think that this party platform is not doing well on that particular thing that you've highlighted as red.
Yeah. Sorry, I misunderstood that. Yes, that is correct. So, sometimes parties all across the board have issues that they've addressed adequately from our perspective, and other times they either didn't address the issue at all, or it was addressed not appropriately. So, for example, sometimes Islamophobia, right? Like how to tackle and address Islamophobia in this country. We don't believe it was addressed as adequately by all the parties as it could have been. So that is a gap that we believe is across all three parties.
So what are the issues that you've covered in this party comparison?
Yeah, so we've covered, we've just gone through their platform and covered what they are proposing. So, for example, there is how they're addressing Islamophobia, whether they have their own ideas or whether, for example, from the National Action Summit on Islamophobia, whether they've taken any of those action items and put together a plan or a proposal of how to address those concerns. We've looked at foreign policy. We've looked at, housing and the economy. We've looked at systemic Islamophobia. So when it comes to the audits, the prejudice audits that the CRA conducted on Muslim charities, when it comes to the CBSA and oversight of that agency or lack thereof. So we've looked at all of these things, and there's quite a few issues there that we believe are relevant to community members and important for them to address.
Did you have a subcommittee? How did you come to the issues that you've focused on in this comparison?
Yeah, so we reached out to community members both through our team and then elsewhere. And then right now we also have a survey going. So this survey is going to kind of feed this information throughout the year. So of course, this platform guide and the election guide are all right now and have to do with this current election. But the intention is to, kind of use these things as a living, breathing document and continue to feed into them from feedback from communities across the country. So we want to make sure that community voices are always included, and if community members think we didn't address something adequately or at all, or if we spent too much time on something, we have plans to continue to survey communities and meet with them and get their feedback to ensure that it's representative of how the community's feeling.
One of the assumptions that these report cards and party comparison platforms are that people actually care about the platform and that's how they make their decision. I think there's social science research that shows that there are a lot more emotional issues, like do they like how the candidate looks, is he or she pretty or not? Like how do you sort of address that issue in getting voters to focus on the platforms?
Yeah, and that's very valid. And I think that's one of the intentions of both the party platform and the elections guide to inform community members that party platforms exist, give them the tools of how to access them and how to read them, and then give them, talking points and questions, suggested questions, of course, that they can take to their candidates. So, for example, if their mosque or local organization is hosting a party debate of some kind or a townhouse or open house, they can take these questions, and if it is on a topic that they resonate with, ask their local candidates about these questions, and then, make an informed decision from there.
So I know this is early days, and you've mentioned that you've got about 1,000 visits, so you're getting good feedback from the community. But do you have any sense, or have you had any reaction from candidates, from people who are running, how this is impacting their campaign?
No, not at this point. So we have plans to do some more feedback and survey, and understand how this was effective. I think hopefully we'll learn more after the election whether or not there were some gaps, like what worked well and what didn't, and then we can improve that for the next time around.
So is there anything else that you would like the viewers to know about your organization or this party platform comparison guide?
Yeah, I would just say it's another tool for them to access and use. And, the Canadian Muslim community is an important part of the electorate. We have an important voice, and it's, this is another opportunity for us to make sure the concerns that are important to our community are heard on Election Day and beyond.
Thank you for joining us. Sarah Mushtaq, board member of the Canadian Muslim Public Affairs Council. We wish you well in your work.
Thank you so much for having us.
That's it from us today. Stay tuned for the next episode. You're watching Canadian Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Stay safe. God bless.